So in this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about how you can scale your clothing brand past 100K per month in revenue. So first, I'm going to talk about why most people struggle with this, and then I'm going to talk about the 4 things that you need to do to take your brand past 100K per month. I'm Carter Murray. I did over 8 figures last year in revenue with clothing brands, and I don't say that to brag, but I say that so you know that I know what I'm talking about. So the biggest reason why I see brand owners struggling with actually scaling is because they don't know the 4 things in their business that they need to even worry about. So I'm going to go over those 4 things. So to start, I'm going to explain why you need to build a solid brand foundation and how you can do that. And then after that, I'm going to go into the 3 most important things that we do when we take a brand past 100K per month in revenue. So part 1, this is building a solid brand foundation. Now pay close attention to what I'm going to say here because this is by far probably the most important one. So if you don't do this the right way, you're going to be in a constant uphill battle of trying to convince people that they want what you're selling. And we don't want that. Personally, I want my biggest problem in my business to be how can I keep up with all the orders coming in? I don't want to worry about if somebody even wants what I'm selling in the first place. So I'm going to go over everything that we do to make sure that that isn't the case. So there's 3 things that we worry about when we build a solid brand foundation. Number 1 is product, offer, purpose. So let's start with the product. Obviously, you want to make a product and you want to sell a product that people want to wear. Now, don't be naive to thinking that you make hard things and everybody wants what you're selling. It might not be the case. So something that we do, and every time that we've had a product just rip to the moon, it's followed the Virgil Abloh 3% rule. So it's basically taken a proven product, a proven concept, it's been changed by 3%, and by doing that, everybody loves it for some reason. At least that's what we've noticed. So if you don't know where to start with your product design, or if you don't know if your product's gonna work, see if it follows that criteria, and following that criteria has worked out a lot for us. So the next part of this is your offer. And when we build an offer, we talk about something called perceived value a lot. And the perceived value is basically how valuable your product is in the eyes of the customer. So you want to focus on that perceived value a lot whenever somebody's shopping on your site. How much does your product look like it should be sold for? And it's kind of a dance. Figuring out what that number actually is with your customer is hard, but once you figure that out, it's like magic. People buy like crazy. You just got to figure out what that number is. And you could also make the offer more compelling by doing a bundle or whatever it is, bundling multiple of your product for a certain price. There's a lot of different ways you could skin the cat on this. And the third thing that you want to do, and this is probably the most difficult thing to do, but if you do this, if you mix a good offer with a good product and you have a good purpose behind it, you pretty much hit a home run. So try to figure out what kind of purpose you could associate your brand to, your product to, if at all possible. It gives somebody something to attach to other than just the products that you're selling. A lot of big successful brands have done this successfully, and because of that, people have aligned with the purpose of the brand along with their products, and it just creates a massive cult following to the brand. So a good example of this is Lululemon. So Lululemon created a great product, and they started out with the goal of creating the best yoga pants or yoga apparel, whatever it was. And they also had some compelling offers that would get somebody to buy their products. One example is a lifetime warranty. So I know that at least it used to be, where somebody could buy Lululemon pants, and if it was ever damaged, they could come back and replace the pants for free. So not only did they create the highest quality apparel in their space, but they also had a good offer behind it too. So the customer saw risk reversal. When they bought the product, they thought, okay, if I damage them, I can return them. It's an investment. If I'm spending $100 on leggings, at least I always have this pair of leggings no matter what happens. But Lulu was smart because they made a list of things that you couldn't do in order to return them. Things like working out in them and drying them, things that everybody did. So it was basically impossible for people to cash in on this offer, but it was there in the first place and it helped them get sales. So the second part to building a solid brand foundation is your cost of goods, your supply chain, and your margins. So I think it's pretty obvious that you need good cost of goods in order to scale. And most people mess this up and they think that they're not very profitable because their cost of goods are too high. So if you get to the point where you're starting to scale with ads and you're not profitable, go back to your cost of goods and make sure you're not overpaying for your product. You usually want at least 60 to 70% gross margins on your product that you're selling. At least that's what we found to be a good area to be in, and we run ads for all of our brands. And then supply chain, make sure they're reliable. You don't want crappy products. You don't want to get scammed. You want to make sure that your shipping times are good. So try to get manufacturers that other people have vouched for. You do not want to mess this up, and you definitely don't want to be waiting a long time for your products to get in. This has to be done before you can actually scale your brand. And then the third thing is track all of your metrics. So personally, I use a Google Sheet for all of our brands. So I'll put in all of our brands' important metrics, their cost of goods, their shipping, their VAT tax if applicable, whatever it may be, and it spits out what my break-even ROAS is and how much I can actually acquire a customer for. And it also gives me something called the LTV to CAC ratio. I know that's a lot, but that's actually just how much profit is each customer making you versus how much does it cost to acquire them. So it's the lifetime value compared to the cost per acquisition. So track all of your numbers and know your numbers, know your cost of goods. You need to study this and make sure that you understand your business through and through. And if you do all of these things the right way, it's almost impossible to lose as long as you put in the work. So after you build a solid brand foundation, the first thing that you have to worry about is your acquisition. And everyone thinks that acquisition is just about running ads and paying to get customers, but that's not always the case. Usually you're paying to get customers, but ads is just one sales channel. And the goal really is to get as many effective sales channels up as possible. So you have Facebook ads as one sales channel, TikTok ads as another, Google ads, influencer marketing, organic content, the list goes on. But you really want as many of these as possible. But to start, I would really just focus on building one sales channel effectively, and then you can move on to the rest. But really you want to be something that we call omnipresent, because they say it takes somebody 7 times to see something before they actually buy. And when you're working on setting up a sales channel, try to build out some customer profiles of what your ideal customer would look like. And if you already have it, try to build out the customer profiles of the people that have already shopped with you before. And by getting an understanding of who's going to be buying and who's already bought before, you figure out how to speak to this audience better in your marketing. So if you understand how your customers are thinking and feeling, it's a lot easier to reach them on an emotional level and to encourage them to buy that way. And that's really what we want. So let's just continue with our Lululemon example. They had a specific customer profile that they were going for. I would argue it was women that were interested in yoga, and that's how they started out. Not to say that they didn't expand out later on, but that's not the point right now. That's how they started. And in their marketing, I would probably bet that they brought up their offer that we talked about earlier. So when you're looking to acquire new customers, you need to understand your brand and how much you can spend to acquire a customer, but you also need to understand what your customers are in the first place and who they are. And the goal should always be to attract as many new customers into the business as possible. And by doing that and by delivering a good service to your customers, you're increasing the chances of them going and telling their friends. Then their friends go and buy from you, and it's a snowball from there, as long as you give them a good product. And on top of that, if you give them a good product and a good experience, they're gonna come back to buy again, and you don't have to pay to acquire that customer again. And on top of that, the more units that you sell, the more likely you are to be able to negotiate deals with your manufacturer for cheaper costs of goods. The next part of your business that you need to worry about is fulfillment. And this is where the customer decides if they're gonna love you or hate you. And this, surprisingly, is probably the easiest part, but most people mess this up, and this is where they mess up their scaling potential altogether. This is where it's important to keep your promises with your customer. So a lot of brands will just do pre-order and they'll collect a bunch of cash up front, but they'll take forever to ship out the items. And then after that, the customer isn't coming back to buy, and they're definitely not gonna have a good thing to say about your brand to their friends. And I would argue that bad reviews spread a lot faster than good reviews do. It takes a really long time to build a good reputation, and it doesn't take very long to mess it up. So in the fulfillment part of your business, you want to worry about your cost of goods, your quality control, your shipping times, and your communication with your customer. I think it's obvious by lowering your cost of goods, you're increasing the profit on every sale. And by having good shipping times and good quality, people have an overall good thing to say about your brand. And on top of that, they're probably going to come back to buy. And if you have bad shipping times and bad products, people are also going to talk about that. So you control what your reputation is going to be. A lot of times, all it takes to make a customer happy is a good product and good communication. Customers want to know that they're being heard. So by communicating with them, you're making a customer happy. So make sure you have email flow set up. Make sure you have weekly newsletters going out. Make sure you're always communicating with your customers, making sure they feel heard. And that way, they're going to have a positive experience to share with other people. In my opinion, it's way better to order a low quantity bulk and to sell out of it than it is to collect a bunch of cash up front, get a bunch of sales, and then lose a bunch of customers that aren't going to come back to buy. You're going to be constantly in a hamster wheel of trying to sell new people that haven't heard bad things about your brand. So make sure your customers are happy, stay on top of your promises, and by doing that, that's going to compound into more sales and more profit. And that brings us into retention. Now, this piece of the business is something that brand owners forget to even worry about. And that's a mistake, because this is where a lot of your profit can be made. To have a repeat customer to come back to buy again, it's just about the best thing a brand owner can ask for. So for one, it means that the customer likes what you're selling and likes what you're doing. And it also means that you didn't have to pay to acquire that customer again. So that's basically pure profit. So here's some ways that you can do this. So first, you want to reward your loyal customers. Give them codes and discounts to come back to buy again. Make sure that they're being taken care of. It's going to make them a lot more loyal to you. Post on your social medias regularly, communicate with your following, and build a community. Make people feel like they're a part of something bigger than the product that they bought. I already mentioned it, but email flows and regular email campaigns to make sure that people aren't forgetting about you. We want to stay in front of the people that have bought from us in the past because they're pretty likely to buy from us again if we take care of them. We also want fast shipping and good quality. We want good communication with our customers, and then we also want to release new products. So if we come across a winning product, we can use the same 3% rule to change that into new colors or slightly new style, and people are probably gonna like to buy that too, especially if they've already bought from you before. So if you can get old customers to come back to buy again, you're gonna make more per customer, and that'll allow you to spend more money on marketing to get new customers in the pipeline. So by building a solid brand foundation and then focusing on acquisition, fulfillment, and retention, we're able to scale brands past 100K per month consistently. All of the things that I shared with you guys are things that we do and the lessons that I've learned in doing this over the course of several years now. I hope you take this advice, apply it to your business, and maybe one day we can partner up and build your business into a bigger business. So if you want to hear more about how I start and scale brands, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and shoot me a DM. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one.